Hi there, dear listener. Laszlo here with a quick pre-roll message for you. Before we get started, I want to let you know there are all kinds of convenient ways for you to support my efforts to bring you all these podcast shows on Chinese history, Chinese sayings, and tea history. If you go to my website at teacup.media and click the support button at the top, you'll find a bunch of ways to show some appreciation. There's Patreon, where you can get early access to new episodes, exclusive content, and an invite to the Teacup Media Discord channel, and more. CHP Premium, that also has early access, exclusive episodes, and ad-free versions of the entire CHP back catalog. Plus, there's several other ways to donate to the show as well. Check the episode show notes for a link to that very page. And my deepest thanks for listening and supporting me and my humble efforts. Welcome back, everyone. Nice to see that you keep coming back to the well. Laszlo Montgomery here, again, with a nice musical Chengyu for your ongoing edification. We're using a Chengyu that comes from one of the greatest primary sources in ancient Chinese history. And as far as I know, we haven't drawn on this one yet for any Chinese sayings, musical or otherwise. The work from which today's Chengyu is derived is called the Zuozhuan. This work, along with the Chunqiu, or Spring and Autumn Annals, written by Confucius, or so they say, are a couple of the most authoritative primary sources of the Spring and Autumn period that have made it to our time. So the Zuozhuan is one hell of an important work that sheds some light on those later Zhou Dynasty days, more than 2,500 years ago. Let's look at the story behind Yigu Zuoqi. But before we do so, let's plop this four-syllable idiomatic phrase up on the slab and pick it apart character by character. Yigu Zuoqi. Yi is the number one. A gu is a drum. Yigu, one drum. Zuo means to make or to do. And qi, this means breath. If you're familiar with the subject of qi gong, this is that character, Qi. So, line them all up in a row, and we get one drum, make breath. Stop trying to figure it out. If you don't know the story from which this Chengyu sprang, I'm telling you, you're wasting your time trying to guess. So let's open up the Zuozhuan and go to the chapter on the 10 years of Duke Zhuang, the 16th ruler of the Lu state, going all the way back to the oldest son of the Duke of Zhou himself. Co-starring in this production is Duke Zhuang of Lu's trusty military advisor, Cao Gui. Now, Lu state is somewhat of a sacred cow as far as all these Zhou-era kingdoms and states go. Confucius and Mozi both came from Lu. Province of Shandong is referred to as Qi Lu Liangguo, the two kingdoms of Lu and Qi. Lu was in the south and Qi was in the north. Combined, they pretty much make up the whole province of Shandong. Cars registered in Shandong province today have the character Lu on the license plate, hearkening back to this fabled time in ancient Chinese history, the Zhou Dynasty. We're in the year 684 BCE at the Battle of Changshao. The kingdom of Qi was warring on the neighboring kingdom of Lu to the south, and the two sides faced off outside of present-day Laiwu. As they did back in those days, the two opposing sides would face off on the battlefield, and their respective battle drums would be beaten to summon the other side to combat. All of a sudden, that familiar boom that stirred the blood of many ancient warriors was heard and felt, and the numerically superior Qi army began pounding their battle drums to start the beginning of combat and to summon the Lu army to engage them. Duke Zhuang of Lu gave the order to his senior general to return the volley and sound the drums at once. However, this senior general, named Cao Gui, advised Duke Zhuang not to do this. He counseled his superior to hold off. Don't do anything yet. Wait for Qi to beat their drums again, and then a third time before doing anything. A second time, and then shortly thereafter for a third time, the Qi army sounded their battle drums. Only after the third time did Cao Gui tell Duke Zhuang of Lu Now was the time to advance and attack. So the sound of the Lu battle drums went out across the battlefield, and with everyone's adrenaline flowing, forward the Lu army advanced. So hard and ferociously did these Lu soldiers fight that when it was all over, it was a resounding defeat for Qi. The Lu army totally overwhelmed them, and bravery was exhibited by his troops, the likes that Duke Zhuang had never seen before. That night, after Lu soldiers were mopping up, Duke Zhuang asked Cao Gui why he had stayed his hand when he had called for his drummers to return the Qi call for battle. General Cao Gui explained, in battle, at the very beginning, when the drums are first beaten, a soldier's courage, morale, and will to fight is at its highest. Then, when it beats a second time, these feelings are diminished compared to the magnitude of a soldier's courage after hearing the first drum beats. By the third pounding of the drums, the courage of these soldiers will fall to the extent that their will to fight will be affected. Then, explained Cao Gui, we beat our drums for the first time and charged into battle when our soldiers' courage was at its peak. With one single pounding of the battle drums, we immediately rushed forward and overcame our less courageous enemy. When our will to fight, after the first beat of the drum was at its peak, theirs on the Qi side was already greatly reduced, and therefore, although they outnumbered us greatly, we were able to defeat them. Duke Zhuang of Lu nodded with understanding and said, I see what this means. With only one beating of our drums, we gave all we got, and in one sudden burst of energy, with our will to fight at its peak, we overcame Qi. And so with Yi Gu, one beat of the drums, the army of Lu, Zuo Qi, expended all their energies, and therefore emerged victorious on that day, back in 684 BCE. Yi Gu Zuo Qi. That's a chengyu you should keep tucked away for when you're in a situation where you're going to be required to give all you got in one single burst of energy, and trying to accomplish a difficult or perhaps seemingly impossible task. In one shot, you give all you got to achieve your objective. Yi Gu Zuo Qi. I'm not sure I could come up with the exact English equivalent of this chengyu. In a single burst of energy. That's the best I could come up with. So that is our Chinese saying for this time. Let me see what musical Chinese saying I could dig up for next time. I'm running out. Don't forget, everyone, there's not just this one podcast. Here at Teacup Media, we have 3 to choose from. Well over 100 hours of pure, unadulterated enjoyment over at the long-running China History Podcast. And for some dynamite travel literature from Westerners who went to China during the Qing Dynasty and wrote about it, go check out the China Vintage Hour. All available in iTunes, Google Music, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Overcast, all the good ones. And if you're flying Cathay Pacific Airways, they too carry this stuff in their in-flight entertainment system. They have such nice taste. Okay, until the next time, this is your host, Laszlo Montgomery, signing off on another perfect sunny day here in the capital of Southern California, Los Angeles. Thanks for popping by for a visit and a listen, and I'll be hoping and praying you'll come back next time for another exciting episode of the Chinese Sayings Podcast.